February 20th. 1413. Thomas Arundel, Archbishop of Canterbury, died. He was consecrated Bishop of Ely at the age of 21, and became infamous by the severity of his conduct towards the reformers. 1437. James I of Scotland, murdered at the age of 44. He fell a martyr to his attempts to abolish the anarchy and disorder which prevailed throughout his kingdom. He was the first of the Stuarts, and stands on the catalogue of royal authors. Is also dated 21st. 1494. Matteo Marie Boiardo, Count of Scandiano, died. In his Orlando Innamorato he immortalized his own peasants and the charms of the scenery at Scandiano in the persons of his heroes and the beauties of nature. 1571. Louis Castelvetro, an Italian critic, died. He was famous for his parts, but more famous for spleen and ill nature. He distinguished himself chiefly by his commentary upon Aristotle's Poetics, where, Rapin assures us, he always made it a rule to find something to except against in the text. 1579. Nicholas Bacon, an English statesman, died. He was appointed Lord Keeper of the Great Seal on the accession of Elizabeth, and was an able and judicious counsellor of that queen during 20 years. 1579. Drake, after many profitable captures in the Pacific, arrived at Lima, where he plundered all the ships in the harbor, in one of which was found a chest full of reels of silver, and a good store of silks and linen cloth. 1648. Thomas Dam buried at Minshall, England, being of the age of 70 154 years. 1725. A party of 40 New Hampshire volunteers on an excursion for hunting Indians, discovered a party of 10 encamped for the night round a fire. At midnight, the enemy were found asleep and the whole shot. They were marching from Canada well furnished with new guns and ammunition, and a number of spare blankets, moccasins and snowshoes, for the accommodation of the prisoners they expected to take, and were within 2 miles of the frontiers. The party entered Dover in triumph, with the 10 scalps stretched on hoops and elevated on poles, and received a bounty of £100 for each scalp, at Boston, out of the public treasury. 1736. A bill was introduced into the British Parliament, placing a duty of 20 shillings a gallon on spirituous liquors, and £50 license for selling them, in order to prevent their excessive use, but was defeated so far as to tolerate punch at a low rate, the merchants of Bristol and Liverpool fearing the lessening of consumption on rum and other things distilled from molasses. 1737. Elizabeth Rowe died, an English lady distinguished for her piety and literary talents. 1745. British ship Chester, Captain Geary, captured the French ship Elephant with $24,000 on board. 1749. Usher Gahagan, executed at Tyburn. He was a gentleman by birth, and a scholar. He edited a beautiful edition of the classics, and translated Pope's Messiah and Temple of Fame into Latin verse. His crime was that of clipping coin. 1762. Tobias Mayer, a distinguished mathematician, died at Göttingen. His lunar and solar tables, as well as his original suggestions on the repeating circle, are of much value. 1771. John James de Myron, a French philosopher, died. He succeeded Fontenelle as secretary to the Academy of Sciences, and is the author of a treatise on phosphoric light, etc. 1772. The Royal Marriage Act of England was passed, This was another of those attempts to perpetuate regal domination. 1778. Laura Bassi died. She was honored with the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, for the great mental acquirements displayed in her lectures on that subject, and was distinguished as possessing every amiable virtue. 1780. British under General Clinton invaded South Carolina. 1781. Robert Morris appointed by Congress Superintendent of Finance. 1790. Joseph II, Emperor of Germany, died. He was an able and benevolent monarch, who devoted his attention closely to the affairs of the kingdom, and introduced many useful institutions. 1790. At Blackwall, England, while excavations were being made for a wet dock, several hazel trees, with nuts, were found deeply embedded below several strata of sand and clay. 1797. Treaty of Tolentino between Bonaparte and the Pope. 1799. El Arish, and subsequently Gaza, with most towns in western Palestine, were taken by the French. 1799. Leopold II died, Grand Duke of Tuscany 25 years, and elected Emperor of Germany, 1790. He evinced great abilities. 1802. John Moore, a distinguished Scottish physician and popular author, died. He wrote on the society and manners of different countries in Europe, which his acute discernment and lively imagination enabled him to describe with great accuracy and pleasantry. 1803. British evacuated Egypt. 1808. Gerard Lake died. He was made a peer of Great Britain for his successes as a general in India. 1809. Richard Gough, a learned and eminent English antiquary, died. 1809. Saragossa surrendered to the French. The garrison was reduced to 12,000 men, who, when they marched out of the city, had more the appearance of specters than of human beings. During this second siege 54,000 perished, of whom 1/4 were soldiers. 1810. Andrew Hofer, the leader of the Tyrolese insurrection, executed. He was a brave patriot, and met his fate with heroic firmness. 1811. Battle of San Cristobal in Spain, in which General Mendizábal was defeated with the loss of about 12,000 killed and prisoners, by the French under Soult, whose loss was stated at 400 only. 1811. Francis II, of Germany, issued an edict, fixing the current value of bank paper at 1/5 of its nominal value. 1817. Samuel Meredith died at his seat in Wayne County, Pennsylvania, first Treasurer of the United States under the Federal Constitution, which office he resigned in 1801. 1820. Arthur Young died, a distinguished English author on agriculture. 1822. John Stuart, commonly called Walking John, died in London. To gratify the amor vivendi, he had perambulated much of the globe. 1835. A tremendous earthquake in Chile. The city of Conception, containing 25,000 inhabitants, was reduced to a heap of ruins, not a single house left standing. Many other towns and villages were demolished. At first the sea retired and left the vessels in the harbor aground, but it soon rushed violently back 30 feet above its level. 1836. Mary Crawford died at Caston, Maine, aged 100 years and 6 months. Widow of Drive W.M. Crawford, chaplain and surgeon at Fort Point during the Revolution. 1841. James G. Brooks died, known in early life as an American poet, and later as an editor of several newspapers. 1843. Peter Augustus J., well known in the state of New York as a statesman and historian, died. 1846. The first legislature of Texas under the U.S. met at Austin. Jen Henderson was elected the first governor. 1849. Newton M. Curtis, author of a number of popular novels, died at Charlton, New York, aged 34. 1854. Elliot Cresson, president of the Pennsylvania Colonization Society, died, leaving $127,000 to charitable institutions. 1854. The most violent snowstorm that had occurred since 1831, commenced at Washington, and extended over the Middle and New England states. 1855. Joseph Hume, the English statesman, died, aged 78. He was a member of the House of Commons 37 years.